Jake Bilbro.
Sure.
We've reached the end, but we've certainly not reached the end of the line here. Jake is like one of the nicest humans that you can find in the wine business. And Jake and I go way back before there was even Jake. So, I mean, really, it's true. It turned out that Jake's father and I worked at the same hospital. He was a hospital administrator. I was, a lab rat. And somehow at Sonoma Valley Hospital, there must have been somebody who came by and sprinkled pixie dust, wine pixie dust, because myself, Jake's father, and one of the pharmacists all started wineries. Yeah. How could you believe that? Yep. And your father went on to do what?
My dad started and founded Marietta Cellars.
Yeah. And so Marietta Cellars, kind of one of the storied, early sort of California old vine you guys were famous for.
Old Vine Red. My dad, so let's see, when did you guys leave in the same year? My dad founded, he first started with Bandiera, but he founded Marietta in 1978, and it was in 76 when he left.
Yeah, I started Ravenswood in 1976, but I wasn't able to leave for another 20 years. That wasn't the same kind of success your father was.
I don't know about that. Yeah, so in 1978, my dad started Marietta Cellars, and the wine that he has, I think, garnered the most acclaim for has been Old Vine Red, which has been a red table wine, a red blend. Many would say the precursor to the red blend category that we have today. He was, for many, many years, he was making that wine, a non-vintage blended red wine, kind of all by himself. And the basis of that wine was always Zinfandel and a bunch of old Carignan vineyards that he would drive around northern Sonoma County and Mendocino County and source these incredible old vines. And I got to ride around with them, so that was not too bad either.
Did he have a dog too?
We had a few dogs over the years, yes.
So dogs and trucks.
That's a
there seems to be a theme here.
That's right.
So you're around this guy who's doing the wine all the time, you got a family, and you decide that you're going to jump right into the wine business, right?
Right in both feet. No, in my household growing up, Shelly's sister Stacy and I were on the same basketball team, same CYO basketball team. Justin Meyer, founder of Silver Oak, was was one of the refs, actually, when we were little. Healdsburg in Sonoma County, very, very, very small. I grew up in Healdsburg. So lots of history running around Dry Creek Valley with Adam as well, and Clay Moritzen and a bunch of others. When I was 18, I sat down with my father, and I think as many of you could attest that at 18 you pretty much know everything in life. And I thanked him, and I told him that I loved him, and I told him that I was never going to work for him and I was never going to work in the wine industry. And he patted me on the back and he said, "Go get him." And I did. I went to UC Santa Barbara. I have a double major in philosophy and religious studies. I really had no intention of coming back whatsoever.
Takes a lot of prayer to make good wine.
Yeah. And I can BS with the best of them. I actually, of all things, I started playing rugby in college, and that took me to a lot of really amazing places. I spent my summers in Aspen, Colorado. I went to Fiji. I went to New Zealand. And, growing up in my household, the chores weren't necessarily washing the dishes. The chores were washing barrels or disking, driving tractor and whatever else. And so I really had enough of wine. That was all that I knew. And so, getting to live in Fiji for 8 months and then getting to spend time traveling all over New Zealand, it opened my eyes to the beauty and how broad and big this world is. I ran out of money. I hurt my shoulder. I couldn't play rugby anymore. I came home. All of my buddies were in Sun Valley, Idaho, and they were working construction for the summer, getting ready to ski all winter, and I said, I am there. And I asked my dad if I could work for him for 2 weeks in order to get the money to get there, and I never left. And gaining that perspective of how beautiful this world is between Santa Barbara and the Rocky Mountains and others, really brought home how beautiful not only the area but the industry is of that we have in Sonoma County that we're so fortunate to have.
So you came back in kind of, sort of altered form, so to speak. You were now willing to be in the wine business.
Yes.
And you guys, your brother too, right? Your brother got involved in the business as well?
Both my brothers, yeah.
Both your brothers, yeah.
Yeah. So I own and make the wine at Limerick Lane Cellars. My brother Scott actually is the winemaker and owner with my dad at Marietta now. And then my brother Sam started a winery as well called Idlewild, and he's in Healdsburg as well. And so we all live within about 6 minutes of each other. There are 6 grandchildren, 6 cousins, all within 5 years. So there was certainly maybe some of that pixie dust that hit you guys in the hospital in the 70s hit us in a different way. Maybe it wasn't pixie dust.
It seems to seems to travel with the genes.
Yes.
Because I got one who ended up with the pixie dust too.
There you go.
It remains to be seen whether the second one will too. I started making wine with my son, who is now Morgan. He was the Morgan then too, but who now has Bedrock. And when he was like 5 years old, and we made a barrel of Pinot Noir every year. Wasn't Zinfandel because he didn't want to make Zinfandel. He wanted to make Pinot Noir. He was stubborn even then. It turns out that Jake's got kids as well, and one of those kids seems to have got an overdose of the pixie dust. So, what are you doing with him?
Yeah, so I have 4 children. Really the evolution and how Limerick Lane came to be was because of my children, and something I've very much learned from my dad and the decades of work that he put into building the brand, and where it was going. I learned how to make wine from him. I learned everything about the business from him. But I really learned about being a dad, which is something very in line but different. And it was a tough time for us when, man, I'm almost getting emotional here. That's funny. It was a tough time for us when I told him I didn't want to work at Marietta anymore. But I have 4 children, and I really had a responsibility there that was important, and something very much that I love. And my dad's very, very supportive of what I'm doing. He blends with me a lot. We spend a lot of time together. But the way I have chosen to look at it is that there are various ways to carry on your family's legacy. So my son, Cruz, who is 9, was born and ready to rock in a vineyard. And that boy, he's very introverted. He's very quiet. He just likes to be in the vineyard, and he likes to be in the winery. He likes other things too, but that's really how he has chosen to define himself. And so this year last year, it was 2016, he asked if he could make his own wine. And so we did. I told him, if you're going to do this, you're on your own. He negotiated with us, my wife and I, that on the first day of harvest every year, he stays home. And so he works with the men, he picks grapes, he's a hardworking little boy. And so I said, in this case, if you're going to do this, this is your baby. So he worked with the men all day. He chose to make Grenache, actually, which is something that we have on the estate. He didn't make Zinfandel either. He drove the forklift. He crushed the fruit. He did the bricks and temps. He did all the punch downs. He totally made the wine. And I was incredibly disillusioned because it was really good.
Competitive to the end.
Yes. So he's making wine now as well. Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's really nice to see. Jake came back and he did the winery, but he's done other things as well, which are kind of interesting. You look at him and you think, this guy's a movie star. Like somebody's going to make a movie about him someday. And it turned out that he has hung out with movie stars on occasion. In fact, you had an opportunity to do some consulting in southern France. And you could have stayed there, but you came back to Sonoma County.
I did.
Unbelievable. So who were you hanging out with?
I consulted for Brad Pitt for a while. I got to spend a lot of time at the Miraval property that they bought. And I did have an opportunity to stay there, and I did turn it down. I would actually say that that was an amazing opportunity. It was a really great experience. It really opened my eyes, and I'm very fortunate with the success that we've seen at Limerick Lane that it has brought me into that world and others. I would say the highlight of that trip was getting to taste with Marc Perron and get to do a 20-year vertical of Chateau Beaucastel and come back saying,
Pretty
I
amazing.
am completely going to try to do things differently now. But it was a really wonderful experience, and I was offered an opportunity to continue to work with them. But again, Sonoma County is home, and I really felt more inclined to try to build my own name and my own brand and spend time with my family as opposed to, be something that was going to be a part of that entity. And this just felt more true. So.
And you have done it really well. So let's taste the wines.
Yep.
So you've got Limerick Lane. Limerick Lane is kind of a storied vineyard. It's been around for a long time. How'd you happen to get it?
So when my wife and I got married, we bought the property across the street. The very first vineyard that my dad ever made fruit from was the Sedini vineyard on Limerick Lane, and he made wine there for 30 years with that vineyard. I grew up with Jenny Sedini and her husband and their son Adrian, and picking grapes and that quintessential, I mean, like right out of the movies, you pick grapes, and Jenny's downstairs in their old basement kitchen, and she's making pasta, and she's doing all of this stuff, and we pick grapes, and then we come out, and you have this huge spread of food under the tree, and then you go back and you pick grapes more, and then we would bring them back and crush them. And so Limerick Lane has been an area that's been very, very central for me. And actually now a really wonderful thing is that as my dad was moving on and moving more of his focus towards northern Sonoma County, not Russian River appellation, that vineyard, the Sedini vineyard, is now with Morgan Peterson, Joel's son. And more overlaps in that regard. The first winemaker at Limerick Lane was Joel for 3 years. And one of the ways that Morgan and I really kindled our relationship was Morgan wanted to give Joel a Christmas present, and he was trying to. And what do you give the guy that has everything? And we looked through the Limerick Lane cellar and were able to find the vintages that Joel actually made. And so that was really, a start. While you started with me well before with my dad, that was also a start with us, which was really wonderful. When we bought the property across the street, it was an old rundown farmhouse. We were rehabbing it. I was working nights and doing everything I could to kind of fix this place up with my wife. And I met the owner at Limerick Lane. He was a really wonderful man. He lives down the street now, Mike Collins. And we just became friends and neighbors. And he had me over for dinner one night, and he asked if I was interested in buying the winery. He didn't want to put it on the market. He had a lot of history there, et cetera. And that was in 2009, which was not a good time to be trying to find financing. It took me until 2011. I went to a bank in Healdsburg, who promptly shot me down. I went to the bank in Santa Rosa. I came to San Francisco, and I met with banks. I flew to LA. I was doing everything I could to try to find financing in one of the worst economic periods. And I literally got to the point where I was going to quit. And the initial bank that I first talked to, which was the local bank in Healdsburg, called me in, and again, a testament to just the familial roots of the area. They said, "We are sick and tired of having every grape grower, every winemaker, everybody in this industry that we work with call us and bug us. We're going to loan you the money."
That's great. So you have two wines here.
Yep.
And I presume they're both from the vineyard. They're different
These are.
sections. And tell us about that.
So the first wine you'll try is our 1910 block Zinfandel. If anything, I'm not original. So the block was planted in 1910. 108-year-old vines. This is a field blend. There is also Pellersan, Negrette, Alicante Boucher, Syrah, Petite Syrah, Mourvèdre, and Trousseau that are interplanted in this block.
That's a testimony to how old it is, actually.
And it's a really interesting thing too, because there are 4 old vine vineyards that go back a century on Limerick Lane, and the 4 families, all Italian families that originally started there, helped each other plant the vineyards, helped each other pick the vineyards. It had quite the reputation as being a party road way back in the day. But none of the vineyards have the same makeup of other varieties that are interplanted. Although all done communally and everything else, there's differences between all of them. So I find that to be just what winemaking is all about. That is the romance. That is the expression of the site, which to me is so amazing.
These wines have beautiful acidity, really great balance. Lots of herb.
Yeah.
Good work, my friend.
Thank you. Second wine is the Rocky Knoll. This is a block in the very back of the estate. It's a single acre. It's very steep. It's very dry. And it's also co-fermented with 12% Petit Syrah and Mourvèdre, which I find very, very interesting. You get just an incredible shaly, stony, minerally character on the nose as well as on the mouthfeel, and just incredible lift from the Mourvèdre in particular as well as the Petit. And so we designate these 2 blocks.
So these wines have such freshness. You must think about that when you're picking.
Freshness.
Freshness, like,
Yeah.
there's verve, there's acidity, there's,
So that's
the
something.
pHs seem pretty,
Pretty.
little lower than most.
At Limerick Lane, we are blessed with acid. It's, a lot of the times you think Russian River, you think Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. We grow Zinfandel and Rhone varietals. But we're on the extreme northeast corner. We're actually dual appellation with Chalk Hill, but we're also blessed with that just beautiful, gorgeous Russian River fog. And so we have very, very cool nights. I have now learned at Limerick, I don't even look at the bricks. I don't pay attention. I look at pH. And for me, it's been a real test of faith, because normally I would say I wouldn't really think that a wine was mature and ready to be picked until the pH was at least a 3-4. And now I've gotten to the point where we're picking grapes that have a 3.1 pH, 3.2 pH. And our natural balance and chemistry, the bricks will be in the mid-24s with about a 3.1 pH and 3.1, 3.2 pH. And I really believe that picking at that balance point, you can get full, gorgeous, rich texture. I mean, you're only going to live once. Let's make a wine that's going to have a lasting memory, I love richness. I love that intensity. But I love the lift and the freshness and the brightness and that tension that comes from that much acidity too. And I'm fortunate that my palate fits what this vineyard wants to do. So,
Thank you, Jake.
Yep.
For the great lift.
Yeah.
And thank you all for being here.